Let's get sweaty.
Hey guys, welcome to a Shenmue Dojo video. Today's video, I'm going to be looking at the succession planning for the Shenmue series should Yu Suzuki not finish it or retire or whatever. So, as we all know, Yu Suzuki is influential in video gaming, and he absolutely deserves to dictate when he retires from the games industry and when he decides to set off into the sunset and go, do you know what, I've had enough and I'm done. And absolutely fair. Now, in a Kickstarter post a while back, this is back during the original 2015 Kickstarter, it was mentioned around succession plan. He did say at the time there was one in place, and James and I covered that in the Kickstarter Updates podcast, if you want to go and check that out. But we don't actually know what this succession planning is. We don't know who's involved. We don't know where anything would go. We don't know who's picking up what. We have no idea. Absolutely no idea whatsoever. So what I wanted to do was talk through some of the potential ideas for succession planning, who could pick them up, why they may not work, and then some final thoughts at the end of the video. So first and foremost, I'm going to start with Sega. Now, they are incredibly unlikely, especially given the recent news with Sega that they're investing more in the Sonic persona and Like a Dragon Studios. So it's suggestive to me they're going to sort of double down on what's working for them, making them a lot of money. I can understand that. And then sort of the other IP that are around that probably won't get as much of a look in. But Sega still own, at this moment in time, the Shenmue IP. So they could easily, if they wanted to, take things back and carry things on under RGG, Reboot, or Shenmue 4, whatever. But it's highly unlikely they will do this. They often leave sort of IP to the side of it, but they are very happy to license things out. So obviously they've done that with Shenmue 3. They licensed the Shenmue IP out to Wisenet for that. They licensed it out for the anime. And they're pretty happy to continue licensing it to Yu Suzuki, imagining if we can get a Shenmue 4 made. So the question there is, if they're not going to pick it up themselves, would they be willing to license it elsewhere? Obviously, that's then a decision for them to make, but it could then heavily impact who may or may not be able to pick things up going forward. Then I'm going to sort of touch on a little bit on in-game games here. Now, in a previous video, I have said that in-game games couldn't do things on their own, but they could potentially, as part of a licensing agreement, pick up Shenmue and move things forward as part of a group of companies, consortium, or investors, whatever. So there is that side to it as well, that there could be some succession planning from in-game games. They obviously picked up Shenmue 3, but we don't know what their plans are going forward. So I just wanted to chuck that out there as well. Then I'm going to sort of talk about the fans. Now, this is probably more relevant if we get to the end of everything, Yu Suzuki's retired, and they're going, do you know what, just release a story, novelize it, whatever, and then the fans can pick it up. Now, we are quite lucky in the fan community, in the Shenmue community, that there are a good number of fans out there who are very talented. They're good coders, good programmers, and can make games. All you need to do is look at Reclaiming the Path or Dream for Saturn to see sort of the quality of games that is out there. And also there's a number of people just get what it is to make a Shenmue game and get that feel right. So it isn't inexplicable that a group of fans could pick things up and finish things off if they had access to the correct source material. So it could be released publicly, or potentially maybe license it if they wanted to. But then that again rests on Sega. And are they going to, I guess, license to a group of fans when you've obviously got business plans and things behind it and make this thing work? I don't know. It's not to say the fans couldn't do it. I think there's enough talent within the community that could do it. But if you're going to do it formally, you need Sega on board with it. And if you're going to do it informally, you obviously run the risk of being shut down as well. And you can't release it for profit or anything like that. But that might be enough. That might be enough for the Shenmue community, that if all the material was released, that the fans make the game, and away you go, and it's job done. But again, I'm not quite sure how that would sit, and it is a lot of pressure on that group of people who may choose to pick this up. And I'm sure you probably know who I mean when I've mentioned DOS and Reclaiming the Path, but I'll leave things there. Then, so I guess sort of more likely, you've got people within the games industry who are Shenmue fans, who have cited Shenmue as being a big influence, and who might be able to pick this up and probably be in a better position to pick things up, given they've got a portfolio of work within the games industry already, and they've got a standing within the industry already. Now, again, this isn't going to be an exhaustive list of these people, and I may have missed some, so obviously let me know, but there's just some that stand out for me, and I've got 3 of them here. So the first one is Steve Lycett at Sumo Digital. You will remember back in the day they made the Sega racing games, the All-Star Racing games, and he made the play to get Ryo in all of them. And you obviously had Ryo on his bike, the forklift, then you had him in the 3 arcade cabinets in Transformed. Great job, superb. At the time, sort of back in the early 2010s, Steve Lycett did express a desire to make a Shenmue 3 if he was allowed to. Now, could that span to a Shenmue 4? I don't know. Would Sumo allow for something like that to happen, given the investment potentially needed to make a Shenmue 4, 5, or whatever? But safe to say, Steve Lycett's a big Shenmue fan, and he appeared in the 25th anniversary video that we did a while ago. So the series would be in good hands if he were to pick it up potentially and move things forward. The next person, well known to the Shenmue community, Ryan Payton, obviously works at Camouflage. He owns the studio, but it was then sold to Meta in 2022, and they are now part of the Oculus studios there. Now, Ryan was a massively influential figure in getting the Shenmue 3 Kickstarter off the ground and had input throughout the Shenmue 3 development process, but among that as well, he is a massive Shenmue fan. He's mentioned it again in previous interviews that he's just done recently, talking about that he hopes to see Shenmue 4 and hopes that Yu Suzuki can continue the story. But obviously, if he's not being able to continue the story, Ryan could be, and I'm putting words in his mouth a little bit here, could be somebody to pick this up. He knows Shenmue, he knows the material, he's a massive fan of the game, and he's got a real grip on how to tell a good story within modern gaming. Obviously, Batman Arkham Shadow was a massive success over on the MetaQuest, and he's got a real good portfolio of games that have come out there and pretty much have had a lot of critical success. So I would be very confident that a studio led up by Ryan could absolutely kick ass and make a great Shenmue game. Now, with his own studio, I say with his own studio because it's owned by Meta now, would they allow for something like that? Is it going to be part of their workflow? Would they be interested in Shenmue? There are wider decisions there outside of him that potentially would maybe hamstring something like that if he wanted to pick it up under the Camouflage umbrella. But I would be really confident if Ryan picked this up and wanted to, and Yu Suzuki had retired, that he could do it if he wanted to and give it the respect and the time that it deserved. But again, not putting words in anybody's mouth there or anything of the sort, just spitballing an idea here. And then the last one I've got is Nagoshi. Now, everybody knows that he worked on Shenmue back in the day. He was basically tasked with getting the bloody thing out of the door because it had just gone mental, the development gone all over the place, and they needed to get this thing released. So that's his experience there. He sees Yu Suzuki as a mentor as well, and also later on he headed up the RGG studio, founded the Yakuza series, which in my view is Sega's premier studio, RGG. So he's got a massive experience there, not just with Shenmue, but with the Like a Dragon Yakuza series and the presentation of those games and the presentation of the Shenmue games as well. So could easily strike a balance with how that might translate should Suzuki retire. He's now got his own studio under NetEase, and now NetEase do have a lot of money behind them, but there's seemingly tension at the moment between NetEase and Japanese studios and the money that's going in around marketing and everything else. So has that nixed the idea that Nagoshi could pick it up under the NetEase umbrella with his own studio? It could be a viable option still. As I said, he worked on Shenmue, he knows the content, he knows the material, he saw Suzuki as a mentor, and could potentially see it as a sort of a tip of the hat to go, look, I'm going to finish this. Suzuki's retired, but I want to finish this for him as a mark of respect. Again, putting words in his mouth, he may tell me to go away, none of my business, but that could be an option as well. Coming away from sort of the games industry a little bit here, obviously there could be succession planning within WiseNet itself or within Yu Suzuki's family, and WiseNet continues under a new owner, and they continue the Shenmue series that way, assuming they can get funding to do so, because obviously they have access to all the source material anyway, it's all there. So they could just very simply just hand things over to somebody and push forward for a Shenmue 4, Shenmue 5 that way. Who knows? But then finally, and again I mentioned this at the top of the video, they could just release the story at Yu Suzuki's retirement and go, look, I'm retiring, I want to release this all out for the fans, and then whatever happens to it going forward is then in the lap of the gods, essentially. So you could release the novels, which we know exist. Obviously in the interview with Shenmue Dojo about a year ago, that was all commented about, that the novels exist, everything's written down, and they take bits from the novels to make the games. You could do a manga series to finish things as well. you could theoretically do the anime, but again, that's challenging to get off the ground itself. But there are plenty of ways out there that you can get the source material publicly available, and then people can make their own games, films, whatever they want to do to give us some sort of closure in either game, film, or whatever form you'd like to do. But I think this could be the final way to let this happen, because then Shenmue is probably going to get left alone. Anyway, guys, I wanted to just spitball those ideas around some succession planning and what could happen, what may happen, and what, it could be miles off as well, it could be completely wrong. But if I've missed anything, you've got any thoughts on this topic, obviously let me know in the comments below, and I will pick those up going forward. So I always say at the end of the videos, like, share, subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all the usual places you can find us. And for £2 a month, you can be a member and get all of these videos ahead of time. If not, don't worry, it just goes onto the Saturday scheduling system as normal. Thank you for sticking with me with this video. I hope you enjoyed the content, and I'll be back with another video in the not too distant future. But for now, guys, take care and have a good one.